there is a discussion where government is deciding what kind or what rate of GST to be applied on gambling, on casinos. So yeah, on casino, on gambling, on lottery tickets, GST is levied now in India. State surcharges, state says completely abolished. So these are the taxes which are now subsumed in GST. Municipal authority tax, it is levied, it is not subsumed. Stamp duty, not subsumed, it is levied. Yeah. So now we have to discuss that these are the taxes which are subsumed in GST. Why this slide is important? Because they may ask you in MCQ questions that what are the taxes which are subsumed in GST or which are completely abolished. And even after GST, what are the taxes which are levied in India? So we have to be very sure that which taxes exist even after 2017 and which taxes are completely abolished. Okay? Is there any doubt in this slide? Otherwise, we will move on to the next slide. Yes? Okay, nice. Now, interesting thing. I always take this funny example that why there is a need of GST. So of course, a boy having a lot of girlfriend, is it easy for him to manage, or is it difficult for him to manage a lot of girlfriend at a time? Uh, if you watch a movie called Garam Masala, in which Akshay Kumar was the star, na, in Garam Masala. In that movie, he was actually dating 3 girls at a time. I think I am not very sure, but maybe somebody from the session. Yeah, it is very difficult. Yeah, Amit is saying that it is very difficult because he has a lot of experience in that area. So he knows that handling a lot of girlfriend together is very difficult. So all these taxes together makes it very difficult for a businessman to do business in India. So what government does is what government does, what family do when some boy is dating with a lot of girls, and if his parents watch him like that, what they will do? Chat mangni pat bya. Yeah, they will. Yes, they will force him to marry, and the same thing happened with taxes also. All these taxes are actually subsumed, and now that boy is actually married to a single girl, and that girl is basically GST. Yeah. So the boy who was dating with a lot of girl, and now he's only and only committed to one girl. I know that girl is also very difficult. Okay, I'm not only saying about girls, even in a relationship, sometimes or many times, boy is also very difficult to handle for girls. Okay, so your partner may be difficult, but yeah, now you are committed to only one relationship, and that same thing happened with the taxes as well. All these taxes are actually subsumed in the GST, and now interesting thing. Okay, interesting thing is when the government introduced where have you shared the notes, just refer the chat box. I have shared the link of all these notes. Please refer the chat box. Yes, in the chat box you can find out the link, and you can download all these notes. I also added some MCQ questions, not some 150, 160 MCQ questions in your notes as well. So download all these notes. You will find out these notes in the first PDF, that is introduction. Okay. Now, interesting thing is, when the government started levying GST in India, they were planning to levy GST in India, then there is a big problem. In India, our government is divided into two parts, central and state. And everybody knows that they are not mutually agreed on everything. They are not sharing the revenue. Everybody wants their own bite. Everybody needs their own revenue. So how is it possible to impose a single tax in India when there are two different government? So that is the interesting thing. Again, very important for MCQ purpose. In India, can anybody tell me what kind of GST model introduced in India? What kind of GST model? Which model? Dual model. Yes, actually yes. Now listen very carefully. In India, GST levied according to dual GST model. And as per the dual GST model, all the transactions are categorized into supply. Means for leaving a GST, there is an interesting transaction. That transaction is called supply. That supply will be divided into two different parts. It's interstate and intrastate. Yeah, all the supply is actually divided into two important parts. Because it is a dual GST model, so all the supply will be divided into two parts, inter and intra. What is interstate? I think the name suggests everything. Inter means when the transaction is between the two states, or the transaction is between the two union territories, or when the transaction is between one state and one union territory. Means ultimately two different governments are involved. State government or central government, one state government or another state government, one union territory or one state government. So in that case, when there are two different government is involved, it is called interstate supply, and in that case, the tax which is levied in India on supply is called IGST, integrated GST. So whenever we are buying something from outside the state, we can look at the bill. Our invoice always uh, in invoice IGST is always written, integrated GST. So when there is interstate supply, the government will levy IGST, that is integrated GST. Now one interesting thing, sir, what about local supply? Local supply means intrastate supply, means when there is same government. When I am selling goods from Maharashtra to Maharashtra, when I am selling goods in Gujarat to Gujarat, when I am selling goods from Puducherry to Puducherry, when I am selling goods from Tamil Nadu to Tamil Nadu, then this is the same state. And if it is the same state, then it is considered as intrastate. And in intrastate, two taxes will be levied, CGST and SGST. Yeah, two taxes are levied, CGST and SGST. Now these are the examples that if the rate of GST is 12%, then what IGST rate I have to charge in my invoice? 12%. And if the rate of GST is 12%, then it is local supply, then I have to charge CGST and SGST 66%. 66%. So if the rates of GST is 12, then IGST rate will be 12. And if the rate of GST is 12, then CGST and SGST will be 6 and 6%. Okay, this is just an example because GST rates are different. It starts from 0%. Can you tell me what is the highest rate of GST right now levied in India? What is the highest rate of GST? It is 28%. Yeah, 28%. So 14% and 14%. CGST 14%, SGST 14%, and the rate of GST, IGST will be 28%. But that is other than cess. There is one GST compensation cess that will be levied other than that 28%. So might be it will reach up to 100%. Like on cigarettes, the rate of GST is very high because the government has imposed cess as well other than GST. So highest rate of GST right now in India is 28%, but because of this cess, that rate will increase up to maybe 100%. Okay. So this is regarding dual GST model. Okay, one interesting thing. I told you that even on import, there is a GST. Even on import, there is a GST. Like if I am importing some goods, or even if I am importing some services, GST will be levied. Okay. My question is from all of you guys that if I am importing something from Dubai, what GST I have to pay? That is a question from all of you guys. Is it CGST, SGST, or is it IGST? IGST. So always remember this thing that import is always considered as interstate supply. Remember this, that import is always considered as interstate supply. So whenever there is an import, whether that is import of goods or import of services, what kind of GST I have to charge? I have to charge IGST. There will be no CGST and SGST in case of import. In case of import, IGST shall be levied. Okay, interesting thing. So this is about dual GST model. And one more thing that they can ask you in the exam, that this dual GST model is actually adopted from Brazil and Canada. Brazil and Canada is are the countries who are following this model even before India. So we have adopted this model from Brazil and Canada. Okay, so they may ask you these kind of questions in MCQ as well. So it's just for learning that from Brazil and Canada, we have adopted this dual GST model. Okay, now move on to the next point. Yeah. Yeah. France was the first country to apply. How they? How does different? Okay, how does different? Okay, first of all, I will share you a very interesting thing, and that is just for the knowledge. Even we are saying that we have adopted the GST model from Brazil and Canada, but very interesting thing, India is the first country to introduce the concept of IGST. Even in Brazil and Canada, there is only CGST and SGST. India is the only country, and India is the first country to introduce IGST. And now, how it is different from France or any other country like US and UK? The reason is very simple. In US and UK, federal government is there, like central government. They call it as a federal government. Okay, so GST is the 100% revenue of GST in US and UK is actually going to in the pocket of the federal government. And the problem with India is we cannot do like that. We have states, we have center, there are different government in state and center. So it is not possible for central government to keep all the revenue of GST, 100% revenue of GST. So of course there is a requirement of such tax where both the government can levy tax parallelly on same commodity. So they come up with an idea that we will share the revenue of GST equally. So what they will do is like, for example, I am selling my goods from in Maharashtra. So what will happen is when I am selling the goods in Maharashtra, central government will get half GST and the state of government of Maharashtra will get half GST. Means if I am paying a GST of rupees 100, then 50 rupees will be going in the pocket of the central government and 50 rupees will be going in the pocket of Maharashtra government. That is the concept. But sir, what is the need of IGST now? IGST is required because when the goods are going from one state to another state, then the problem is that the revenue is in the hands of central government and half revenue is in the hands of Maharashtra government. Now when the goods are going outside the state, it is not practically possible that the Maharashtra government will share the revenue with the other state in which the goods are actually consumed. So the basic idea of GST is the revenue should be going in the pocket of that state where the goods are actually consumed. So if the goods are going from Maharashtra to Gujarat, then the problem is the goods will be going from Maharashtra to Gujarat, but the complete revenue, that half share of state, should be in the pocket of Gujarat only, because it's a destination based tax, it's a consumption based tax. So revenue of GST will be shared between central government and the consumer state. So now if the CGST and SGST is only there, then the problem is that Maharashtra government is not ready to share its revenue with Gujarat government. The Maharashtra government will not give the tax which is in their pocket right now to the Gujarat government. So the government came up with an idea that if the goods are growing from one state to another state, now don't levy CGST and SGST. Levy a different tax that will be used later for adjusting the credit, and that tax will be going in the pocket of Gujarat government. So there will be no dispute. What will happen if only there is CGST and SGST, the goods are sold in Maharashtra, now the revenue is in the pocket of Maharashtra. When the goods are going now outside the state, Maharashtra is not ready to share its revenue with Gujarat government. And that is the problem with only CGST and SGST model. We need a different tax where the revenue will not be going in the pocket of Maharashtra, it will be going in the pocket of the consumer state. And that is going to happen only if there is a dual GST model. And that's why it is completely different from other countries, because there the central government is the controlling agency. Here both wants their own control, central as well as state, and that they are not agreeing to share their revenue with each other. And that's why government came up with an idea of IGST, where when the goods are going outside the state, now this tax will not collect any tax. This state will not get any tax. When the goods are manufactured in the state and they are going to the another state, there will be zero revenue of Maharashtra government. If the goods are manufacturing in Maharashtra state, and after manufacturing that goods are sold to Gujarat, in the pocket of Maharashtra, the amount that is going in the form of tax is zero. Zero. Because it's a consumer state. It's a consumption based tax, and Maharashtra is not a consumer state. In this scenario, Gujarat is the consumer state. So the revenue will be shared between central government and Gujarat government, not Maharashtra government. But if the goods are sold locally, then the revenue will be shared between central government and the Maharashtra government. and that is the need of introducing IGST in India. I think that is enough to explain you why there is a requirement of dual GST model in India. Can I move on further to the next slide? Yes. Thank you. Okay, nice. Now everybody knows there are three taxes: IGST, CGST, and SGST. CGST and SGST rate is equal. So if IGST is 12%, then CGST, SGST is 6%. If IGST is 18%, then CGST, SGST is 9%. That is very easy to understand. Now next important thing. Next important thing is, I have already told you this, that SGST is collected by state government, CGST is collected by central government. And interesting thing is, IGST is collected by central government, but 100% revenue of IGST is not going in the pocket of central government only. I have explained you right now. Tell me what will happen with IGST? Whether it will be in the pocket of only central government. At last, what will happen? It will be in the actually it will be shared. It will be shared between central government and the consumer state. Listen, this is very important. IGST revenue is actually collected by central government, but it is to be shared between central government and the consumer state, destination state. That is very interesting. Okay, so that is why we are required to introduce dual GST model in India, because of the structure of democracy in India. Very nice. Revenue of IGST is to be shared between central and consumer state equally. Very interesting. Now, there is one interesting concept that I have to explain, and this is very interesting. I can guarantee you, they will ask one or maybe more than one practical question from this concept that I will be discussing it right now, and this is very, very important. So everybody has to listen this very carefully, because if they are asking any practical question, there is a I think there is not slight chance, there is a very huge chance that they will ask the question from this particular topic. So everybody has to listen this very carefully. Okay, I have told you right now that if the goods are sold by an MP dealer to the buyer of Rajasthan, then of course, first of all, it's an intrastate supply or interstate supply. Of course, it's an interstate supply. And which tax will be levied here? IGST. Of course, IGST will be levied. Next important is, this is very basic, that if the goods are from MP to MP, then which tax will be levied? CGST and SGST. This is basic. This is not like important. What I'm going to discuss now, this is very important. The problem is with when the goods are purchased from the outside state and sold locally. Now, I am purchasing the goods from the outside state and I am selling it locally. What will happen is, I am paying IGST, but now my output liability is CGST and SGST. Yeah. So I have a credit of which tax? I have a credit of which tax? IGST. And now I have to pay CGST and SGST. Now there is a problem, because there are three different taxes, and the problem is that I have a credit ITC of IGST, and I want to pay CGST and SGST. So what is the possibility? Whether this cross utilization is possible or not, and if yes, then what are the terms and conditions, and what are the limitations, and where I can set off, where I cannot set off. This is very important, and the name of the topic is called cross utilization of credit. This is very important. They can ask a MCQ, practical MCQ on this topic, and I am giving you a guarantee that if a paper contains practical questions, they will definitely ask you this topic, cross utilization of credit. And what about this? Listen very carefully. I have a credit of IGST. What I can do is, I can pay IGST tax with this credit. Of course, if I have a credit of IGST, I can easily pay IGST credit. I can easily pay IGST tax, but IGST credit can also be used to pay CGST and SGST. Yes, interesting. IGST is a tax which can be is a credit. IGST credit is a credit which can be utilized with IGST tax as well as CGST and SGST tax. But CGST can be used with CGST and IGST, but there is one interesting case. Credit of CGST cannot be used with SGST. Yeah, one thing Vishal is asking, sir, it is also for UTGST. Actually, UTGST and SGST is similar. So whenever I am quoting SGST, always assume it as a UTGST as well. So for union territory, it will be UTGST. For state government, it will be SGST. So yeah, if I am talking about SGST, automatically I am talking about UTGST. So the interesting case is IGST can be set off with IGST, IGST can be set off with CGST and SGST. CGST, yeah. Can you write down that write down your query in the chat box, because uh, can you write down, because it's I think I am not able to hear you properly. So please write down your doubt in your chat box. I will reply it. Okay. Point is, IGST is a tax which can be used to adjust with IGST as well as CGST and SGST. CGST is a tax which can be adjusted with CGST and IGST, but interesting thing is CGST cannot be adjusted with SGST. And again, SGST is a tax which can be adjusted with SGST and IGST, but it cannot be adjusted with CGST. Now first Chalu is asking, sir, what is UTGST? Likewise, like in MP, there is a state government. Like in Rajasthan, there is a state government. So SGST is applicable for these states. But for union territories like Andaman and Nicobar, like Lakshadweep, there is no state government. So in that case, rather than SGST, the name of the tax is called UTGST. Yes. So that is called UTGST. So if I am selling in Madhya Pradesh, I will be charging CGST and SGST. But if I am selling in any union territory, then I will be charging CGST and UTGST. Okay? Nice. Now, what about ranking? We will discuss about ranking, but to remember this point, first of all, I always took a very simple example. Uh, I think everybody watches daily soaps. In India, we have daily soaps like Saas Bahu and this kind of shows. Okay, so uh, we can create a show, we can direct a show, and the name of the show is Saas Bahu and Pati. If you can understand something in Hindi, it is, oh, Anupama. Anupama is a show, yeah. Anupama is not Saas Bahu Tutu Meme, but maybe like we can direct a show and the name of the show will be Saas Bahu or Pati. Okay, so this is the name of the show. So, in this show, IGST is Pati, CGST is Saas, and SGST is Bahu. Saas, Bahu and Pati. So IGST is Saas. Sorry, IGST is Pati. CGST is Saas and SGST is Bahu. Now you can correlate the relationship. IGST is Pati. It means he is the son as well as the husband. So he has to manage both himself, his mother, as well as his wife. So IGST is a tax which can be adjusted with himself, that is IGST, with his mother, that is CGST, and with his wife, that is SGST. But interesting, nobody in the world can make this relationship good. Which relationship? Saas and Bahu. Saas and Bahu. So CGST can be adjusted with CGST and IGST. Of course, mother and son having a good relationship, so they can adjust with each other. So CGST can adjust with CGST as well as IGST, but globally it is impossible. It is like the worst relationship that these two people, who Saas and Bahu, and that is the best example I can quote here is CGST cannot be adjusted with SGST and SGST cannot be adjusted with CGST. So IGST is the beta, IGST is the Pati. It can be adjusted with Saas and Bahu both, with the wife as well as with the mother. CGST can be adjusted with the son. SGST can be adjusted with the IGST, that is the son. But there is no combination like CGST and SGST. So listen this very carefully, that there is only one blockage. CGST credit cannot be used to pay SGST tax, and SGST credit cannot be used to pay CGST tax. I am explaining once again that SGST and UTGST are similar, are same. Only the place is different. For Madhya Pradesh, a state, it will be SGST. For Lakshadweep, a union territory, it will be UTGST. So it is similar, SGST and UTGST. Okay. Now, there is one more interesting question asked from all of you guys. Sir, you told us that this is the blockage. I cannot adjust CGST with SGST or SGST with CGST. Sir, but what about some ranking? Is there any some ranking? Yes. Now listen carefully. There is a thumb rule. And for this you have to read on the screen very carefully. What is the thumb rule? First, IGST credit to be completely utilized. This is the first thumb rule that we have to understand. What is the thumb rule? That first, IGST credit to be completely utilized. Yes. Means if I have some IGST credit, I have to adjust that IGST credit with my tax. And once my IGST credit becomes 0, then only I can use CGST or SGST credit. This is the first important thumb rule. Will you remember this? So whenever we will be using the credit, tell me which credit is required to be exhausted in the beginning. IGST. We can use the credit of CGST, SGST only after IGST credit got exhausted completely. Yes, very nice example from Amit Kumar. पहले पति को पूरा निचोड़ दो. Yes, निचोड़ेगा तो पति ultimately sandwich तो पति बनेगा. So of course पहले पति को पूरा निचोड़ दो means once husband will be completely exhausted. Yes, then only mother and wife will adjust. So yeah, so pehle IGST, first IGST is required to be exhausted completely, then only we can use the credit of CGST and SGST. Okay, so this is the first important thumb rule that we have to understand. So now what is the ranking? For this I have prepared a listen this ranking status. Okay, this is very interesting. Look at the screen, and this is very important. Listen this ranking status. I will minimize myself so that you can look at the screen properly. Yeah. So now, look at the screen. We have ITC of IGST, CGST and SGST, and the ranking will be same. First I will use the credit of IGST, then I will use the credit of CGST, then I will use the credit of SGST. Now I have tax of IGST, I have tax of CGST, and I have tax of SGST. Now what should be the ranking? First, I have to adjust IGST with IGST. This is another thumb rule, that tax will be adjusted with similar kind of tax first. Then it will be adjusted with another variety of tax. So IGST, I have to exhaust the credit of IGST first, and IGST will be adjusted first with only IGST. So this is my rank 1. First, I have to adjust the tax of IGST with IGST credit. If I have some credit left of IGST, then I can use that IGST in CGST or SGST. Now this is very important. There is no ranking between CGST and SGST. Means if I have a credit of IGST and I want to use this credit with CGST, I can use. I want to use this credit with SGST, I can use. So the ranking will be similar for CGST and SGST, because the credit of IGST can be utilized with CGST and SGST according to our choice. Okay. First, IGST credit is completely exhausted. Now I will go to the another credit, that is CGST. But CGST will be credit will be adjusted first with IGST or first with CGST? CGST. So another ranking will be first with CGST and then with IGST. But yeah, it cannot be adjusted with SGST. So that column will be blank. Now after adjusting this credit, If I have a crate of SGST as well, then I will use the crate of SGST. But again, tell me which will be rank number 5. Whether I will adjust my SGST with IGST first or SGST first. SGST, yeah. And then only at the last, I will be adjusting the grade of SGST with IGST. Okay, so this is the ranking we have to follow. What are the thumb rule? Two thumb rule we have to learn. First thumb rule is we have to completely exhaust the crate of IGST first. Second important thumb rule is the tax will be adjusted first with the similar kind of tax and then with another tax. So with that thumb rule, we are able to rank our complete adjustment in 6 rank. Rank 1 will be IGST with IGST, then CGST or SGST with IGST, then CGST with CGST, then IGST with CGST, then SGST with SGST, and then finally IGST with IGST with SGST. These are the 6 rank that we have to follow when we are using the credit. Amit Kumar is asking, is there any proportion to be followed between CGS and SGST? No, not now. It was required to be followed before 2020, I think. But now there is no fixed proportion. Once I have used the grade of IGST with IGST, I can go for CGST or SGST according to my choice. But I will tell you what we should do. To calculate the minimum tax payable, I will give you a technique that we can follow. Okay, that I will cover in the examples. First, tell me, are you able to understand this topic? Of course, I will take practical example to make it more clear, but are you able to understand the ranking? Yes. So now we have to take some practical example. Yeah. So now we have to take the practical example. Look at the example. I have a opening balance of IGST 75,000, credit, opening balance of credit IGST 75,000, CGST 60,000 and SGST 30,000. So this is my opening balance. Then this is my current month credit. How much is the current month credit? 25,000 IGST, 10,000 CGST and 10,000 SGST. And this is my output gross liability. This is the tax I have to pay. 50, 85 and 85. Okay, now you have to calculate what is the minimum tax payable in this particular case in cash. Try to calculate this. Minimum tax payable in cash. They can ask you this example in MCQ. This kind of MCQ they can ask you in exam. So please calculate minimum amount to be payable in cash. And which tax. You have to also quote which tax and how much amount. I am giving you 2 minutes to solve this question. Tell me, do you get any answer? Uh, some students are saying 10,000 cash we have to pay. Some are saying CGST and SGST 10 and 10. Uh, IGST, SGST 20k and ITCK balance of 10k. There are some students who are saying we have to pay cash 20,000 SGST and ITC balance of 10,000k will be carry forward. Okay. Now what is the correct answer? Listen very carefully. Now I will explain what is the correct answer. Listen carefully. Uh, First of all, this is the total balance of ITC. Are you able to get this balance? We have opening balance as well as we have current balance. So our total balance will be IGST 1 lakh, CGST 70,000 and SGST 40,000. This is the total ITC we have. Okay. Now, how we will adjust this? Listen very carefully. Listen very carefully. First, I am adjusting my IGST with IGST because this is the rank number 1. IGST with IGST. Yeah, this is rank number 1. But I have a balance of rupees 1 lakh in IGST. So after exhausting the balance of 50,000, I am left with 50,000 more balance of IGST. Yeah. So I can adjust it with CGST as well as SGST. But now this is quite interesting. Listen very carefully. Look at the balance of CGST and SGST. Look at the balance of CGST and SGST. We have CGST balance of 70,000 and SGST balance of only 40,000. So in this case, we have to apply a very simple principle. What principle? That tax which is having their own credit on the higher side, I will adjust IGST with that tax which are having low credit in his own account. Like in this scenario, we can see that I have a balance of 70,000 in my CGST account. So what if I am using my 100% IGST of 50,000 in CGST? What will happen? My CGST balance will be left and I have to pay cash a lot of amount in SGST. That is wrong. What should we follow here is we have to take a reasonable look that if I already have a balance, so much balance of CGST, then why can't I adjust my IGST first with SGST? So what I did is I just put the CGST and SGST balance, and when I saw it, I looked at that I already have a CGST balance of 70,000. Now from IGST I only need 15,000. So what I will do, I will only adjust credit of CGST of from IGST only 15,000, and I will adjust the remaining amount of tax with the CGST balance only. So I will just do the reverse calculation that I have to pay 85,000. I already have a CGST balance of 70,000. So I will adjust only 15,000 IGST with my CGST. And the same thing I did here. Out of 85,000, I have adjusted only IGST of 15,000 and the CGST of 70,000. That helps me to completely exhaust the balance of CGST of 70,000, and so my CGST cash payable is also 0. Now, after adjusting 15,000 from CGST, I am left with 35,000 IGST balance. So first 1 lakh IGST credit, I have adjusted 50,000 from IGST, 15,000 from CGST. Now I am left with 35,000 IGST that I will adjust with my SGST. So out of 85,000, 35,000 will be adjusted from IGST. Now I can use the SGST credit of 40,000, and I will be paying only 10,000 balance in cash. That is the amount of SGST. 10,000 of CGST is also a correct answer. If you have an answer of 10,000 of CGST, that is also correct. In that scenario, I think you have adjusted 45,000 IGST with SGST. That is also right. What I am saying is your minimum tax payable should not exceed 10,000. Minimum cash payable should not exceed 10,000. Whether it is CGST or SGST, it is okay, but your minimum tax payable should not exceed 10,000. I have seen one answer in which he or she was saying that I have SGST payable is 20,000, CGST balance is 10,000. That is not right. That is not reasonable, because you are paying more in cash and you are left with the credit balance. So that is not the reasonable thing to do. What is the reasonable thing to do is my cash payable should be minimum. So in this scenario, my cash payable is 10,000, whether it is CGST or SGST doesn't matter, because you can change the ranking. You can adjust SGST first of 45,000 and remaining with the CGST. It is okay, but your minimum cash payable should not exceed 10,000. Yeah, can you write down, because there might be a problem. Can you write down in the chat box if it is possible for you? Please write down in the chat box. Yeah, I am taking the doubts. So if anyone having doubt, please ask me. And I will prefer if you are writing down in the chat box. It will be quite comfortable for all of the guys. What if IGST would have been 1,50,000? If IGST would have been 1,50,000, then I will adjust my complete credit of 1 lakh from IGST only. So my credit of IGST will be completely exhausted from IGST only. Yeah. Is it correct? 5K SGST, 5K CGST? Yeah, it is also correct. I am saying that total cash payable should not exceed 10,000. Whether it is 5K SGST, 5K CGST, doesn't matter. My complete total cash liability should not exceed 10,000. And I should not be left with any credit balance, whether it is CGST or SGST. Okay, any other doubt? What will be the answer if we choose in MCQ? They will give you both the answers. Like they will give you an option of both, that both are correct, because both are actually correct. Yeah. Any other doubt? Otherwise, I am moving towards the next point. Okay, you can write down. You can write down. What if 1,50,000 is IGST? Then I already told you that I have 1,50,000 IGST credit balance. Okay, one student is asking me that 1,50,000 in IGST. What? It is a output tax or credit balance? Chandigarh Singh. Uh, okay, what if IGST ITC more than total liability? Very simple. I can only adjust IGST credit then. I will completely exhaust IGST. My credit of CGST and SGST will remain in the ledger. It will not be adjusted with any tax. My thumb rule is first I have to completely exhaust my IGST ITC. So if I have a lot of IGST ITC, I will only use IGST ITC. My CGST and SGST ITC will be in the account only. It will not be adjusted with anyone. What if we have CGST output tax rupees 1 lakh and IGST ITC 60K and CGST ITC 50K? Which credit will be left? Okay. If we have CGST output tax 1 lakh, my credit will be left of CGST. CGST. My ITC that will be left after adjustment will be CGST. Will be CGST. Yes. First, listen, what is my thumb rule? I have to completely exhaust my IGST credit first. That is the thumb rule. So first, IGST, I will completely exhaust my IGST first. Then I will adjust other taxes. Then after exhausting IGST credit, then still there will be liability to pay IGST. Might be there is a liability. If there is a lot of IGST tax to be paid and I have already exhausted my IGST, then I will use my CGST and SGST credit. Just follow the ranking. Just follow the ranking. Rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, rank 4, rank 5, rank 6. You have to follow the ranking. That means if any case, if IGST is greater than the total liability, then CGST, SGST credit can be used. Yeah, very simple. If my IGST credit is, I have a lot of IGST credit, more than my total liability, then I will always be remaining with my CGST and SGST credit balance in my credit ledger. It will not be exhausted. It will be used only once my IGST credit becomes zero. Okay, great. I have one more example for all of you guys, but this example should be in your homework. Yeah. So, are you giving homework to us? Yeah. I am giving you homework. I am giving you a similar question for your homework. Uh, this question having the similar data. I have some taxable supply, some purchases, some opening balances, and I have also attached the solution. So I will request when you are solving this question at your home, first solve this question without looking at the answer. In the next slide, I have attached the solution as well, but don't refer the solution. First, go for the question without looking at the answer. There is one more doubt. Any time limit for utilization? There is no time limit. Once you have claimed the credit now, once it is in your ledger, in your credit ledger, you can use that ITC for so many years. There is no limit. No time limit for using. The time limit is only for availing. When can I claim the ITC? Through my return. Once it is credited in my ledger, I can use it anytime. Anytime. There is no time limit for exhausting or using the liability, using the credit. There is no time limit for that. So yeah, if I am constantly getting the credit of IGST, I will always be remaining with CGST and HGST credit unused in my account. So it will be unused till my IGST credit got exhausted. It will always be remaining in my credit ledger. Okay, nice. So yeah, yeah. But first, huh, yeah. Of course, but first we have to use that credit with CGST tax. If you are only having IGST, then of course you can adjust that IGST with CGST. But what is my ranking? Once my IGST got exhausted, okay, my credit of IGST got exhausted. First, I have to use my credit of CGST with CGST only. And after that, if you still I have the balance, then of course my rank 4 is I can adjust the CGST credit with IGST tax. So that is my rank 4. Okay, so I have given you two thumb rule. First rule is exhaust the IGST credit first. Second thumb rule is the same nature of tax should be adjusted first. Okay. Yes, great. Okay. Any other doubt? Otherwise, I will be moving towards the next important topic. Okay, great. I don't think so. There are any doubts. We can move on. Great. So now there is one more important point that uh, is regarding again that can be asked in your MCQ paper. They can ask you in the MCQ paper. Uh, what are the post GST taxes? Means the taxes which are levied even after introduction of GST. There are a lot of taxes which are levied even after introduction of GST. So I have prepared a brief slide on that, that what are the taxes levied even after imposing of GST. And the very first tax is about petroleum. Yeah, listen carefully. On petroleum tax, petroleum products means petrol, diesel, aviation turbine fuel, natural gas, and crude. So petro crude, petroleum, diesel, aviation fuel, and natural gas. For these five products, GST is not levied now. Central excise and state VAT exist in that case for petroleum product. For tobacco product, tobacco is a very interesting case. Tobacco and narcotics, nashile padarth. Tobacco and narcotic goods, central excise as well as GST compensation cess. So government wants to impose a lot of taxes on these commodities, on these narcotics and tobacco products, and that's why central excise is there, GST is there, and even GST compensation cess on tobacco and narcotic products. Next is import and export of goods. We have custom duties, but we also have IGST. On customs, we not only have basic custom duty, we also have IGST, and we also have some other additional custom duties that we will we will discuss tomorrow in our custom session. Alcohol, interesting thing, on alcohol we have not central excise, state excise and state VAT. So the 100% control on alcoholic product is only in the hands of state. So on alcohol we have state excise and state VAT. Yes, so this is again interesting. On petroleum we have central excise and state VAT, but on alcohol we have state excise and state VAT. Nice. Next, on multiplexes and entertainment activity, we have GST plus one interesting thing more. We have entertainment tax levied by local bodies. So I told you in the previous slides that we have some entertainment tax. So ET levied by local body exists even after abolishment of other entertainment taxes. So multiplexes and entertainment tax, GST is levied, as well as entertainment tax levied by the local bodies also here. Okay, so that is about multiplexes and entertainment tax. On real estate properties, we have GST as well as we have stamp duty. We will discuss later about the construction activity. So on builders, on townships, on apartments, on flats, we have GST as well as we have stamp duty. So when I am registering, when I am transferring my title, I also have to pay stamp duty. And for selling the property, for selling the flats, for doing the construction activity, we have GST. And finally, all other goods and services are actually covered only under the ambit of GST. So this is the post tax structure, post GST tax structure. Like after GST, we have so many taxes. So when the government promised us or always say like one tax, that was not the actual position. That is not the actual position. We have lot of taxes exist even after introduction of GST. So this is the post GST structure. Look at the slide, remember everything, because they might ask you anything from this slide in the MCQs, that on this product what kind of taxes are applicable, on this product whether these taxes are subsumed, whether these taxes are levied. What is the scenario they might ask you in the exam. Now you can ask me any doubts in this slide. Yeah, of course, both. For multiplexes, we have GST as well as entertainment tax. Yes, but it is entertainment tax levied by local bodies. There was one more entertainment tax that was imposed by state government. That is now abolished. But GST plus entertainment tax levied by the local municipality authority, that exists right now. Yeah. Any other doubt? Yes. Yes. So tobacco is a very interesting commodity. Okay. First, actually, I am uh, getting my own voice. So I will ask everyone to mute. Okay. So now I can. Okay. Uh, I can answer first doubt. That is on tobacco products. We have central excise as well as GST plus compensation cess. So no, VAT is not there on tobacco product. Now there is no VAT. There is a central excise plus GST plus GST compensation cess. There is no VAT on tobacco products. So tobacco products, we have central excise. There was a duty in central excise which is applicable even after imposition of GST. So tobacco is an interesting commodity because it is covered in old regime as well as new regime. Central excise as well as GST. Another doubt is, well, GST credit will be applicable on entertainment tax? No. ITC input tax rate is available only for GST taxes. So we cannot claim any ITC of central excise on VAT, on entertainment tax, on state excise, state VAT. No. Excise, central excise credit can be used only for payment of central excise. State VAT credit can be used only for payment of state VAT. We cannot claim the credit of state VAT for paying central GST taxes. So in GST, we can claim the credit only and only of GST taxes. Okay, next. On multiplexes, we have to pay CGST as well as SGST. Actually, it depends on interstate or intrastate transaction. If it's interstate, then CGST, SGST. If it's an intrastate, then CGST, SGST. Interstate, then IGST. Ha, yeah. So normally, yeah, normally this happened that they are supplying their services locally, so they will be charging CGST and SGST. But there is a scenario when we are booking the tickets from Book My Show, we will get the invoice of IGST because we are ordering to the Book My Show, and then Book My Show is booking tickets on the behalf of us. So there might be a chance of interstate transaction. So in that case, the multiplexes might levy IGST as well. That depends on the place of supply. Uh, Actually, when it was introduced first in 2017, the entertainment tax was abolished. But from 2018, I think before from 2018 or 19, they again introduced this tax by the local bodies. So now it does not depend on the central government to decide whether they have to impose entertainment tax or not. Now it is on the authority of the local bodies to levy entertainment tax. So in some states, entertainment tax on local bodies are there. In some states, entertainment tax on local bodies are not yet imposed. So GST is always there for multiplexes, but entertainment tax levied by local body depend on area to area, on local bodies to local bodies. Okay. There is one more doubt. Okay, you can write it on the chat box because I already have a doubts on chat box. GST compensation cess was for the limited period, so will not be applied later on. Actually, it is extended now. It was applicable for 5 years from 17 to 22, but now the government has decided to extend this tax for another few years. So GST compensation cess exists even after 2022. It is now extended. It is now extended. So they are not able to compensate the states completely. So the cess is extended for further few years. Okay. Uh, Manoj, please turn off your camera. It's written on the chat box by someone. So yeah, it's a request. Please turn off your camera. What is the logic of state taxes on petroleum and alcohol? Why not include in the GST? First of all, why alcohol is not included in the GST? Very nice answer. Because state government does not want to share the revenue with central government. If the alcohol is in GST, then the state has to share the revenue of alcohol with center. Right now, the complete tax revenue of alcohol is only in the hands of state. So why they will share their piece of bread with center? That's why alcohol is not in GST. Second, why petroleum is not in GST? Government want to introduce petroleum in GST, but the problem is government have a lot of share of revenue from petroleum products. And once they are introducing petroleum GST on petroleum, maybe the problem is with the credit. They have to give the credit of petroleum as well. Right now, I don't get the credit of the taxes paid on the petroleum. So government is not right now ready to introduce GST on the petroleum because they have to give credit on petroleum products as well, and they are not ready for that. Sir, what tax will be applicable on diesel, motor, spirit, natural gas, ATF? That is central excise and state VAT. Petroleum products, we have central excise and state VAT. Yes. For naphtha and any other fuel, GST is there. For other chemicals, GST is there, like ethanol, like ethyl. All these items are covered in GST. Only 5 petroleum products are not under the ambit of GST: petrol, diesel, aviation turbine fuel, that is air fuel, crude oil, and natural gas. Only 5 petroleum products are not under the ambit of GST. All other goods are actually under the ambit of GST. Sir, GST compensation was levied first from 2017 for 5 years till 22. Okay, so yeah, we have lot of doubts. So we can move on further to the next topic because yeah, Amit is saying. Samarjeet, you have to mute yourself. Samarjeet, please mute yourself. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we can move on to the next topic. And now everybody knows about the GST legislative framework, that which are the acts we have to discuss. So we have a CGST Act 2017. We have IGST Act 2017. We have SGST Act for 28 states. And we have Union Territory Act for a lot of UTs. But here it is very important to understand that out of 8 UTs, 3 UTs having their own SGST Act. Yeah, because they have their state legislatures. Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir. So for us, Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir will be treated as in state, and they have SGST there. For 5 UTs, we have UTGST Act. So we only have 5 UTGST Act. And for 3 UTs, that is Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir, we have SGST Act. So basically we have 31 SGST Acts. 28 for the states and 3 for the UTs. And remaining 5 UTs, they are not covered under any state legislation, and for that we have 5 UTGST Act. So they might ask you this in MCQ, that which union territories are having UTGST and which union territories are having SGST. So we have 3 union territories which are actually covered under the ambit of SGST Act. Which are the 3 names? Are you able to remember these 3 names? Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir. So sir, now what are the 5 UTs which are having UTGST Act? These are the names. These are the 5 UTs where we have UTGST Act. Lakshadweep, Daman and Diu and Dadar and Nagar Haveli is now 1 UT. So they have 1 UTGST Act. Andaman and Nicobar, Ladakh and Chandigarh. These 5 UTs have UTGST Act. The 3 UTs which are remaining is Delhi, Jammu and Kashmir and one more was Puducherry. They have SGST Act. So tell me, there are how many SGST Act in India now? 31. And how many UTs? UTGST Act? 5. Are you able to remember the 5 names having UTGST Act? Lakshadweep, Daman and Diu and Dadar and Nagar Haveli, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Ladakh and Chandigarh. Clear? So there was some doubt regarding UTGST. I think now it is clear. What about UTGST Acts? Okay, move on to the next slide. I have some MCQs. You have to answer these MCQs. Okay, I already given the answer, but look at the MCQ. I have the balance in the electronic credit ledger under CGST Act. It can be used against which liability? Tell me the answer. CGST only or CGST or IGST? Yeah, answer is also there, but yeah, it is CGST and IGST. There is one more MCQ. I have the balance in the electronic credit ledger under IGST. It can be used against the liability of all three. Yeah, Pati, husband. It has to be adjusted with Pati as well as mother and wife. So IGST, CGST and SGST. Correct answer is C. Okay, which of the following taxes will be levied on the import? Tell me the answer. Is it CGST, IGST? Yes. Import, we have to pay interstate. It's interstate, so we have to levy IGST. Very nice. What are the taxes levied on interstate supply? Very simple. It's CGST and SGST. Nice. So these are some MCQs. Sir, other MCQs I have already given in the PDF notes. So in the PDF notes, you will find out a lot of MCQs from the basic introduction as well. So this is regarding the basic introduction, like what are the taxes levied in India, what are the cross utilization, what are the taxes which are subsumed, what are the taxes which exist even after introduction of GST. So this is the basic introduction of GST. Now we can move on to the another topic, that is supply, because for understanding the GST, we have to understand a very important transaction, and that transaction is supply. So we are moving towards the next slide. So I have already shared the notes with all of you guys. So you have to open the another notes that having the name of second slides. And from here we are starting about supply under GST. You need to take a 5-minute break. Yeah, we can have a 2 minutes break. We can have a short break of 2 minutes. If you need, we can have a short break of 2 minutes, and then we will start with supply. Send the link of the GST notes. I am again sharing the Google Drive link. Yeah, you can download the notes from this link. So we are having a short break of 2-3 minutes, and then we will start with the next topic, that is supply. I know, and we'll cover. Don't worry. We'll cover and we'll try to cover as much as possible, and we will cover it in a very proper manner. Okay, so we can start now. Okay, so now we have to discuss about the supply. Okay, now what about the supply? First of all, supply is very important because supply explains us whether GST will be livable on our transaction or not. If I'm selling something, if I'm doing something, then whether uh, my transaction will be covered in GST or not. That is very important. Gunjan is requesting to ask the participants not to interrupt frequently via blah 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 blah. Okay, no problem, yaar. Chill. We are just like friends, and we are having an interactive session. We are not like I am not your teacher or anything. We are just we are just some friends, and we are just interacting something with each other. So don't worry, yaar. Chill. Okay. So if you are interrupting, no problem. I will answer your doubts, and I will try to cover everything. So you don't have to worry. Okay. So uh, now listen carefully. So before discussing what is supply, I want to explain to you what is the importance of the supply. Importance is like if I am doing any transaction, whether I am selling goods, whether I am giving any services, whether I am doing any kind of business, whether my transaction is covered in GST or not. Whether GST will be livable or my transaction or not, that completely depends on a very important definition, that is supply. Because if my transaction is a supply, then of course GST will be livable. If my transaction is not supply, then there is no question to levy GST on this transaction. So it is a taxable event. If I am doing anything which is a supply, then of course GST will be livable. So we have to understand what is the exact meaning of supply. And for this, do you remember, anybody knows which section we have to refer for supply in GST? Anybody remember? It is section number 7 of CGST Act. Yes, section 7 of CGST Act, and this is very interesting to know that section 7 is actually divided into 5 different parts. 71A, 71B, Schedule 1, Schedule 2, and Schedule 3. So we basically have 5 different subparts of section 7. 71A talks about supply with consideration. Like if I am selling something, if I am doing something, and for that I am getting consideration, then might be my supply will be covered in section 71A. If I'm importing any services, then it will be covered in 71B. And if I am doing something without consideration, like I am doing something but I am not getting any monetary or non-monetary consideration out of it, then might be my supply is covered in Schedule 1. Schedule 2 contains the list of supply of goods or services. Actually Schedule 2 is not that relevant because it just represent that what should be treated as goods and what should be treated as services. So it does not talk about the supply, it talks about what should be treated as goods and what should be treated as service. And finally there is very important schedule. That important schedule is a list of goods and services which is not supply. So this is very important. So we have to divide our section 7 into how many parts? 5. 71A, where I am doing any supply with consideration. 71B specifically talks about import of services. Schedule supply without consideration is covered in Schedule 1. Supply of goods and services is actually covered in Schedule 2, and neither supply of goods nor supply of services, basically it's a negative list, it is covered in Schedule 3. Okay, so first we have to discuss about our general rule, that is 71A. It is the general provision. It will contain 90% transactions that we have in our daily life or we have in our businesses. So that will be covered majorly in 71A. One question I will be asking from all of you guys. You have to answer me. Why in this definition there is nothing talk about import of goods? I need to I need this answer from all of you guys. Why import of goods is not covered in these 5 different inclusions? Yeah, the reason is very simple, because import of goods is not covered by GST law. Import of goods is covered by custom law. So in Customs Act, you will find out the transaction of import of goods. In GST, import of services is only there because import of services is covered under GST Act only. Okay. So now under section 7, we have 5 different inclusion, and we are starting with 7.1a. Now what about 7.1a? 7.1a talks that if you are doing supply, then for your supply, there should be 5 conditions required to be fulfilled. What are the 5 conditions? First, there should be a transaction. Yeah, there should be a transaction, like there should be something, na. That's why we will levy GST. Government will not charge me GST for doing nothing. So of course I am doing something, I am doing some transaction, and that transaction should be done by the taxable person. That if I am selling something, if I am doing some services, if I am doing something, that should be done by the taxable person. Third, we are covering 7.1a, so there is one important element of consideration, whether it is monetary or non-monetary, it doesn't matter, but there should be an element of consideration here. Fourth, the transaction should be business related transaction. And fifth one is the transaction should be of goods and services. So for being a supply under section 7.1a, how many condition is required to be fulfilled? 5. What are these 5? First, it should be a transaction. Second, transaction should be done by the taxable person. Third, there should be a consideration. Why consideration? Because right now we are discussing 7.1a. If it is schedule 1, then I can say there is no requirement of consideration. But right now we are just discussing 7.1a. So there is a requirement of consideration. Fourth, there should be a requirement of business. And the fifth thing is there should be a requirement of goods and services. So if it's a transaction done by the taxable person for consideration in furtherance of business of goods and services, then I can say it's a supply under section 7.1a. If even one of the condition is not fulfilled, it is not a supply under section 7.1a. So like if I am doing the transaction, that transaction is not covered in the transaction that we are going to discuss right now, then it is not a supply. If the transaction is done by a person which is not a taxable person, then it is not a supply. If it is without consideration, then we may have to look schedule 1. But if it is not covered in schedule 1, if it is not covered in 7.1a, then of course it is not a supply. If it is not a business, then it is not a supply, and the transaction should be of goods and services. Is it clear to everyone? So now we have to discuss with the first transaction. Sir, what is the meaning of transaction here? So in supply, we have 8 different transactions. Anybody remembers the name of the transaction? Is there any, if you remember something, there are 8 different transactions in GST, which is considered as supply. These are the names: sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease or disposal. Basically, majorly all the business transactions we have are actually covered here. If we are selling something, it is covered. If I am transferring my title, if I am transferring my ownership, or even I am transferring my possession, it is also covered. Barter, exchange of something, I am getting something. Exchange, again it is I am exchanging something with some other commodity, or maybe half commodity, half money. License, I am licensing my rights, my intangible property to be used by someone. Like I am getting the royalty, I am getting the fees for franchisee fees or any kind of fees for transferring my rights. Rental, if I am renting my property, whether it is movable property, immovable property, it is covered in GST. Lease, long-term lease, short-term lease. And interesting, one more thing is disposal. Disposal means even if I am selling my capital assets. Yeah, it is very interesting to understand that if I am selling my capital assets, it will be a transaction under GST. Means if I purchase some assets and if I am selling my capital assets, even selling the assets is also covered under GST. So like I am teaching, I am a teacher. If I am getting the fees for coaching or for from student, of course it is under the ambit of GST. if I bought something for my business, like I bought a camera for recording lectures, and now I'm selling my camera, even for selling the camera, I have to pay the GST. So GST having a very wider scope. So if I am buying something, I got the credit. If I'm selling something, I have to pay the GST. It doesn't matter whether it is my stock, it is my business item, or it is my capital assets. If it is connected to my business, whether it is capital assets, whether it is a stock, it doesn't matter. I have to pay the GST. So this is quite interesting to understand that a businessman is selling his assets. He has to pay GST on sale of assets as well, disposal of assets as well. Getting my point? Nice. But there is one interesting thing. In this 8 transaction, one transaction is not covered, that is sale on approval. So if I am not selling my commodity, I am sending the goods for approval basis, then it is not a transaction which is levied under GST. Means if I am sending the goods for approval, I don't have to pay GST right now. Can you tell me when I have to pay the GST if I am sending the goods on approval? Sample, or maybe I am sending the 5 different commodities to the customer, and he will approve one commodity out of 5, and he will return. It's not about sample, it's sale on approval. I am not talking about the samples, I am talking about the approval sale. Mean I will charge the consideration for that. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there is a difference, because in sample there is no consideration. We are talking about the consideration. So yeah, when once I get the approval, that will be the sale, and then at that time the supply will be there. If I am sending the goods for approval, there is no supply right now. The supply will be when the approval arrives. Okay, so that is regarding the sale on approval. So there is no GST on sale on approval right now. But if I'm selling, if I'm transferring, if I'm barter, I am doing any barter transaction, exchange, license, rent, lease, disposal, all these transactions are covered under GST. And if I am doing this transaction, and of course I have to fulfill all the remaining 4 conditions as well. If I am also fulfilling all the other 4 conditions, then on this transaction GST will be levied. This is the first case. What should be the transaction? Sale, barter, exchange, license, rental, disposal, lease, or exchange. These are the 8 transactions. Second important thing. What was the second condition? The transaction should be done by the taxable person. This is very important. Who is the taxable person? According to GST, taxable person means either the person is registered under GST, means he has the GSTIN, he has the GST registration number, or if he doesn't have the GST number, he is liable to get registered. Means not only the person who is registered, a person who has the liability to get registered. He is not registered till now, but he has the liability to get registered, then he is also a taxable person. Means a person who sells something and he doesn't get registered under GST, but he is liable to get registered, then the government can recover GST from that person also. That person will be treated as taxable person. Now the question arises is, who is liable to get registered? Somebody knows what is the liability when a person is liable to get registered? Yes, there is a threshold limit. And what is the threshold limit? Actually, there are many threshold limits, but I am talking about the general limit. For majority of the states, like for more than 20-25 states, the limit of turnover for goods is 40 lakh, for services is 20 lakh. So yeah, if my turnover in the financial year exceeds 20 lakh if I am doing any, if I am providing any services, or 40 lakh if I am supplying any goods, then I am liable to get registered. And if I am liable to get registered, then I am a taxable person. Yes, so it is very important to understand when a person is liable to get registered. A person is liable to get registered when his turnover crosses 40 or 20 lakh. For goods it is 40 lakh, for services it is 20 lakh. Actually, if a person is doing the business of goods as well as services, always lower limit is applicable. Like if a person is selling goods as well as he is selling the services, then he is liable to get registered if his total turnover exceeds 20 lakh. So yeah, total turnover, aggregate turnover should not exceed 40 or 20. If he's dealing in both, then the lower limit will be applicable. For some states it will be 10, for some states it will be 20, for some states it will be 20 plus 40. Now in this topic we are actually discussing supply. So we are just talking about the basic threshold limit. It is for goods 40, for services 20. Yeah, in the aggregate turnover I will be considering all the turnover, whether it is the turnover of taxable goods, whether it is the turnover of exempt goods, whether it will be the turnover of export, whether it will be the turnover of petroleum, alcohol, everything. All my turnover limit should not exceed 40 or 20. If it is exceeding the 40 and 20, I am crossing the limit. I have to get registered. I am liable to get registered. Okay. Now I have one question from all of you guys. You are asking so many questions now. Now this is my turn. I want to ask a question from all of you guys. Listen, a person is teaching, okay, and he has a turnover of 15 lakh in Maharashtra, 15 lakh in normal state, 15 lakh. Tell me whether he is a taxable person or not. A teacher is teaching in a coaching academy and he is having a turnover of 15 lakh in Maharashtra. He doesn't have any other turnover. Tell me whether he is a taxable person or not. No, because he is not crossing the threshold limit. He is a service provider, but he is not crossing the threshold limit because the threshold limit is 20 lakh rupees. So yeah, he is not liable to get registered. My another question. A teacher is teaching in Gujarat, again the normal state, and his turnover is 25 lakh rupees. Whether he is taxable person or not, he is not yet registered. He is not registered. He is not yet registered. Whether he is, yeah, he is liable to get registered. So yeah, he is a taxable person. My third question. A teacher is doing the turnover in Rajasthan. He has a turnover of 10 lakh rupees. Okay. But he got voluntary registered. Now whether he is a taxable person or not. He is voluntary registered. Voluntary registered. His turnover is only 10 lakh, not crossing the threshold limit. My question is, he doesn't have, he has the GST number, but he is not liable to get registered. Whether he will be considered as taxable person or not. Yes, because the condition is either he should be registered or liable to get registered. So if he is voluntary registered now, if once you get the GSTIN number, you are liable to pay GST whether your turnover is more or less. It doesn't matter. Once you are voluntary registered, you have to pay the GST whether your turnover is only 1 lakh rupees. So don't take or don't get the GST number for Hawabaji. That only I am getting the GST number, I am not going to pay the GST because I am not having any turnover. Even if you are not having the turnover more than the threshold limit, if you have the GST number, so you have to pay the GST because you are registered. So this is very important to understand. Okay, so this is the example for that. I am supplying the goods, my turnover is 45 lakh. Tell me whether I am taxable person or not. Yes, yes, I am liable to get registered. I am a taxable person. I am liable to get registered. Nice. Second question. My turnover is 15 lakh. I am registered whether I am taxable person or not. I am registered. I am registered whether I am taxable person or not. Yes, I am a taxable person. Next. Services. My turnover is 25 lakh. I am not registered. Tell me whether I am taxable person or not. Yes, because crossing the threshold limit, liable to get registered. Fourth case, I am selling the goods. My turnover is 15 lakh and I am not registered. Tell me I am taxable person or not. No, because neither I am registered nor I am liable to get registered. So I am not a taxable person. So now now everybody got what is the meaning of taxable person. Two inclusions, either the person should be registered or the person should be liable to get registered. Very nice. Moving towards the next important point, that is what is business. Yes, if I am doing any turnover after getting registered, for that turnover I have to pay GST whether my turnover is crossing or not. What you can do is you can surrender your GST. If you think that my turnover is not going to cross the limit, it is useless to get the GSTN number. You can apply for surrender. You can tell them that I am no more liable. My turnover is less, so you can surrender your GSTN number. But until you have the you don't surrender your GST, you possess your GSTIN number, you have to pay GST on your turnover. Okay, moving towards the next slide that talks about the business transaction. Can you repeat the question? Can you repeat the question? Pardon? Lower limit is applicable. I am supplying both, then 20 lakh limit is applicable. Always go that if I have two threshold limit, aggregate turnover, total turnover should not exceed 20. Total turnover should not exceed 20. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yes. So my total turnover is 40. So my threshold limit is exact 40. So I am not crossing. If it is 40 lakh 1 rupee, then I have to liable for I have to get registered. Border is 40. Sorry. I have goods and services both turnover, and it is for single registration, or I have different two different registration. No, it doesn't matter whether I have one registration or two registration. Turnover will be calculated on PAN basis. So if I have the same PAN and I am getting different registration, my total turnover should not exceed 40 or 20. Now your second question is, I am doing goods as well as services turnover, so limit will be only 20 lakh. So if my turnover is 40, of course I have to get registered because my total limit should not exceed 20. Yes, okay. Now, moving towards the next point, that is regarding business. Why to have two registration? Actually, Saurabh, I can explain you right now only. It is compulsory in GST to get different registration for different state. Like if I have my 5 different branches in 5 state, so for the same state I can apply for one GST, but for two different state I have to go for two separate GST number. So yeah, if I am having two branches in two different state, then of course I have to apply for two different GST number. One for Gujarat, one for Maharashtra, one for Madhya Pradesh, one for Rajasthan. So for two different branches, I have to apply for two different GST if it is having two different states. For same state, I can do business in one GST. But two different state, I have to apply for two different GST number. My total turnover should not exceed GST limit. For all the states, for all, it's it aggregate turnover of India on PAN basis should not exceed the threshold limit. Yeah, yeah. No, actually, you are supplying the goods from one place of business. So I can supply my goods from one branch in 28 different states. I will charge IGST. That is not the point. So I am having the branch in only Maharashtra. I have only one office in or one registered place in Maharashtra. I can send the goods in 20 different states, 30 different states. I will charge IGST. I don't have to apply for 20 different GST. I am talking about the branches. If I am having the branches in the different states, then I have to apply it for separate GST in different states. So it depends on the place of business. If I am supplying the goods from one place of business to the different state, I will survive only with one GST number. I don't have to go for 20 or 30 GST numbers. Okay? Then that is a different place of business. If you are selling anything from that warehouse or you are dispatching the goods from the warehouse, you have to apply for separate GST there because now you have one place of business in that place, that state as well. Yeah, I can take a very simple example. I have Mintra is having 20 warehouses in 20 different states. They are having 20, they are maintaining 20 warehouses in 20 different states. They have to apply for 20 different GST. Yeah, no, it's not GST free. Even if I am supplying the goods from my one state to another state in the same ownership, like I have my one branch in MP and I have another branch in Rajasthan, then sending the goods to the another branch is also livable under GST. So when I am transferring the goods from one warehouse to another warehouse in two different states, I have to prepare the invoice. It cannot be sent from, it cannot be transferred from one state to another state without GST. You know why? Because of IGST model. Yeah, because credit chain will break. If I am not sending the goods without invoice now, my credit will be in the one state and my transaction is in another state. So for continuously running this chain, my goods should be transferred with invoice always. Of course, I can adjust the credit. There will be no extra tax burden because what credit will be transferred to the next branch. So when they are preparing the invoice, they can use that credit. So there will be no tax burden, no extra tax burden. But when I'm transferring the goods from one branch to another branch, I have to prepare the invoice always in different state. Okay. Now, move on to the another point. We have a lot of doubts. Move on to the another point. Our first condition was transaction. Second condition was there should be a taxable person. Now the third point is business. Of course, there should be a business transaction. If a person is selling his second-hand car, he is not having business. He has a personal asset and he is selling that asset to any other person, then he doesn't have to prepare the GST invoice. He is not required to pay GST on that sale. That transaction will be covered in supply only if I am doing any business activity. I am having any business. I am a trader. I am doing any commercial activity. I am doing any profession. I am any office bearer, office holder, anyone. But there should be a requirement of any business. And one more important thing is the business is not only when it has a monetary benefit. Even mutually a few people gathered together and makes a society, makes a cooperative society or a association, then even the cooperative society is doing business with the members, and when the cooperative society is supplying the goods or services to its member, it is liable for GST. So the important thing is there is no requirement of any monetary benefit. Even if it is for the non-monetary purposes, we have to pay the GST if I am doing any business activity. So any trading, any commercial activity, any manufacturing, any profession, any wager, anything, whether I am doing for monetary benefit or non-monetary benefit, it doesn't matter whether it is profit motive, non-profit motive. If it is a business activity, then it is covered under the ambit of GST. When GST will not be applicable? When a person is selling his household items, when a person is selling his personal assets, then in that case it is not a business transaction. GST will not be livable. So for example, if I am selling my second hand car and that car is not in the name of business, it is my personal asset, then I don't have to pay GST on sale of that car. Okay, so this is another important aspect, that there should be a business transaction. So practicing cost accountant, doing professional activity, it is a business. A chartered accountant doing any professional activity, it is a business. A trader selling goods, it is a business. A manufacturer manufacturing something and selling goods, it is a business. A casino doing a adventure or wager activity, it is a business. A society supplying goods or services to its member, it is a business. Each and every transaction, whether it is monetary or non-monetary benefit, only the personal transactions are eliminated. Other than that, all the transactions are business transaction, and in that case, GST will be leviable. So this is the third important criteria. Okay. What is the fourth criteria? Fourth criteria is very important: goods and services. Goods and services. So what is goods? What is services? This is very important. They can ask you a MCQ based question on this definition. What should be included in goods? So goods is, everybody knows this definition. Goods means any movable property. The important thing is two inclusion and two exclusions. Look at the two inclusions. First one is goods includes actionable claims. This is weird, because generally actionable claims is not covered in the definition of goods, but here in GST actionable claims are included in the definition of goods. Can anybody tell me why? Why actionable claims are included in the definition of goods? Actually correct, absolutely correct. Actually, gambling, the government wants to include gambling in GST. And I can tell you, lottery tickets, gambling chips is a actionable claim. So if I want to charge GST on gambling, I want to include GST, I want to impose GST on gambling activity, then of course gambling should be included in the definition of either goods and services, and actually lottery tickets is covered in the definition of goods. So if I am selling the lottery tickets, if I am selling the casino chips, then it is an actionable claim and it is included in the definition of goods, so that GST can be charged on gambling or lottery tickets as well. So for leaving the tax on gambling, they have to include actionable claims in the definition of goods. So goods includes any movable property, actionable claims, crops, but again it includes two important things: money and securities. First of all, money. Money should not be included in goods and services, because if I am just giving money to someone, I cannot say this is a supply. Because giving the money to someone, if it makes supply, then GST will be leviable on each and every transaction. I am depositing my money in the bank, it will be a supply under GST. I am loaning the money to the friend, it is supply under GST. No. So mere money transaction where there is no supply, I am just giving the money to someone and the person will return the money to me again, then it is not any goods or services. So money transaction is not covered in the definition of goods. Second is very important: securities. Share transaction, sale of shares, sale of securities, derivatives, futures, these all are security transaction. And you know why it is not included in the definition of goods and services? Because security transaction tax is applicable. Already there is a tax on the transaction of security, and that is STT. So securities is not covered under the ambit of goods and services. So if I am talking about the securities, they are covered in STT transaction, and that's why it is not included in the definition of goods and services. So interesting, goods include all movable property, two inclusion, two exclusion. What are the two inclusions? Actionable claims and growing crops. What are the two exclusions? Money and securities. So if I am giving any loan to my friend, it is not a supply under GST. If I am depositing money in the bank, or bank is giving me any loan, then it is not transaction covered under GST. What about services? Again, services means anything other than money, securities and goods. CMA Mohit Kumar is asking, sir, what about the supply of electricity? Actually, electricity is goods, but it is not under the ambit of GST. There is no rate of GST prescribed on electricity. So there is no GST in electricity, but whether it is goods or services, yeah, electricity is covered in goods. So no cost EMI comes under GST, actually depends on the interest. If they are charging interest on credit cards, like I am swiping the credit card and for that they are charging me interest, then on that interest amount is a supply. The principal amount is not a supply, the interest amount they are charging from us is a supply, because that is a service. If I am, they are giving me an EMI of 10,000 for 3 months and I am paying it 30,000, there is no interest included, then it is a mere money transaction. Okay. Supply of water by government, that is covered in goods and services, that is not excluded. It is exempt but covered under definition of goods and services. It is exempted later. So it's an exempt transaction, but yeah, it is goods and services. It is covered in the definition of goods and services. So now we are talking about services. Services, what is the definition? Anything other than goods, money and securities. So anything which is not covered in the definition of goods, it will automatically be covered in the definition of services. So what it says, anything other than money, again securities, and one more, goods. Why goods is excluded from the definition of services? Because there is no need of any overlapping. So they uses the word anything. So of course that with anything we have to exclude the goods as well. So anything other than money, securities and goods, that is the definition of services. But services include two important transactions. First, if I am not dealing in stock, I am arranging transaction for securities. Like I am stock broker, Zerodha, or maybe Upstock, angel brokers, Arihant Capital, who they are? They are stock brokers. So on their stock brokerage, GST is leviable. It is treated as services. So stock brokers are covered under the ambit of definition of services. They are covered under services, stock brokers. Second, exchange of money is not GST, but charging commission for foreign currency is under the ambit of GST. So bank is charging commission for currency exchange. I want to sell my dollar or I want to sell my rupee. Then the bank will charge us a commission amount. Then on that commission amount, GST will be leviable. Yeah, listen, this is very important. Conversion of currency is covered under the ambit of services. So a bank is charging commission on the foreign exchange. That is under the ambit of GST and it is covered under the definition of services. Now there is one more doubt. Electricity is goods or services. Actually, in GST it is not clearly prescribed whether it is goods and services. But as per the Constitution of India, Constitution of India assumes electricity as goods. You know why? Because it can be transmitted, it can be stored, it can be distributed, and that's why it is not service, it is a goods as per Constitution of India. So applying the general principle, electricity will be treated as goods. Next, what is about immovable properties? Immovable properties will be covered in the definition of goods or services. Actually, it is covered in the definition of services. Yeah, immovable property will be covered in the definition of services. So if someone is doing any construction of immovable property, it will be covered under the ambit of services, not under the ambit of goods. Because immovable activity, anything, so it will be covered under the definition of services, not in the definition of goods. Clear? So what is our one more interesting condition is it should be either goods or it should be either services. So now we have 5 important conditions. Again we can repeat. Yeah. Principal value is not under the ambit of the GST. So I am a trader, I am doing a share transaction of 1 crore rupees in a year. I will not be liable for any GST because already that transaction is covered under the ambit of security transaction tax. So the charges I am paying to Zerodha, that will only be covered under the ambit of GST. Nice. Any other doubt? No? Very nice. So we have the 5 conditions. What are the 5 conditions? Can we repeat once again? For making a supply under 7(1)(a), we need 5 different conditions to be fulfilled. First one is there should be a transaction. How many transactions was there? How many transactions was there? 8. Sale, barter, exchange, lease, license, transfer, disposal, exchange. These are the 8 different transactions. Second important condition is there should be a taxable person. 2 types of taxable person, either registered or liable to get registered. Who is liable to get registered? Who has crossed their threshold limit of goods or services. Third important condition, consideration. Whether it is monetary, non-monetary, it doesn't matter. But if there is any consideration, then of course it is covered in definition of 7(1)(a). Fourth important condition is it should be business. Whether it is monetary, non-monetary, it doesn't matter. If there is any trading, profession, manufacturing, wager, any kind of adventure, any activity, whether for monetary or non-monetary benefit, it doesn't matter. It will be under the ambit of business. Finally, goods or services. Goods, 2 inclusions, 2 exclusions, services, anything other than goods, money and securities, but 2 inclusion, stockbrokers and foreign currency exchange. Commission on currency exchange, that is also covered under the ambit of services. So that is about 7(1)(a). Tell me any other doubt in this 7(1)(a). Otherwise we are moving towards 7(1)(b). Okay, so let's move towards 7(1)(b). And 7(1)(b) is about import of services. But now this is very important. Import of services for consideration. But there is one interesting line. With or without furtherance of business in India. For 7(1)(a), what was written? If I am doing any transaction, it should be for the purpose of business in India. But 7(1)(b) says if I am importing something, like if I am importing any goods or services from outside India, here we are talking about the services only. It will be supply, it will be covered under the ambit of GST if it is for consideration with or without furtherance of business in India. Yeah. So what is the difference in 71A and 71B? Only one difference. In 71A, there is one more important condition, that was business. 71B says if I am importing something, I have to pay GST whether I am importing it for business or whether I am importing for non-business purposes. So yeah, that is very important, and that is the difference between 71A and 71B. 71A says if I am selling something, if I am transferring something, if I am leasing something, it should be for my business. But 71B says if I am importing something, then whether I am importing for business use, whether I am importing for personal use, I have to pay GST. GST will be leviable. Foreign person, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely. According to 71B, yes. But if I am saying overall, actually there is an exemption. That, but it is later. I will tell you one thing. I will just explain this point, then I will tell you what is exactly. I will answer your doubt. Okay. Listen very carefully. Here, the purpose of the government is basically to cover online services. Online services like services of Apple Cloud, services of Google, services of domain names, services of OTT platforms, services of applications, services of any antivirus company, services of any exchange operated from abroad. I am talking about, look at the area. Government want to apply GST on online services in India. Now when we can easily pay online through PayPal or through even through cryptocurrencies, or there are different modes where we can pay online globally. Okay, so the government want to impose tax on these online services. Like for example, uh, I bought an application for my iPad. The name of that application is Notability. This is the application. It's a notability application where I can write anything on the PDF. Okay. So this application I bought for 800 rupees per year. So I have to pay a subscription amount of 800 rupees per year for buying an iPad application Notability. So if there is no 71B, if there is no 71B means if there is no 71B in this particular scenario, what will happen? There will be no GST on buying this application from an online company abroad. So to cover that transaction, government imposed a very interesting point that if I am importing something and if it is without furtherance of business, then also I have, GST will be leviable. So they want to basically cover the online transaction in this particular case. But now important. Uh, Shalu asking me that what will happen if I am personally buying any consultancy services from abroad? What will happen in that case? Actually, in that case, if it is for the business purpose, like I am consulting something for business, then of course it will be leavable and RCM will be leavable in case. Okay, but if it is for non-business purpose, then as per 7.1b it is a supply, but in exemption it is actually exempt service. So if you are asking me that whether it is supply under GST or not, yeah, it is supply under GST. If I am consulting something and I am paying consideration for personal consultancy as well, then of course it is a supply as well. But in exemption, it is exempt service. So I don't have to pay GST. So the main purpose of the government to impose GST on online transactions. That is the main purpose. So if I am buying something for my personal use other than this online transaction, it is exempt. But for an online transaction, it will be covered under the ambit of GST. Sir, online purchasing from of goods from abroad, hello, we are only talking about import of services. So if you are importing any goods, it will be covered under the ambit of custom duty. So if you are buying something online from abroad, it is covered under the ambit of custom duty. The custom duty will be chargeable in that case. It will not be covered in 71B because we are only talking about import of services, not about import of goods. Okay. Any other doubt? Just a second. I am just adjusting the screen little bit. Uh, just a second. Okay. So, just a second. I am just adjusting the size of the screen. Yeah. Now this is completely visible. So the point is, yeah, there are some doubts. Import of service for business purpose or not, it will be treated as supply if done by the taxable person. Yes, yeah, it is supply if it is done by the taxable person. Later, it is covered in the exemption that only online services are covered here. So if I am buying something from any app store, from a notability app, I am buying any kind of online services, then GST will be leavable, and that online company is liable to pay GST on that. The online company who is selling me the goods from abroad, they are liable to pay GST on that transaction. That is the ultimate motive of the government. Now, is it clear to everyone? Is there any other doubt? Otherwise, we can move on to the next part. This is about 7.1b. Yeah, online services are covered if there is any other service like other than online. Like Shalu just asked me that I took a consultancy services from a person abroad uh, in India for personal purpose. Now that is covered in 7.1b because it is with or without furtherance of business, it is covered in 7.1b. But later it is an exempted services. So I am not liable to pay any GST on that transaction, not because it is not a supply. It is a supply because, but it is exempt service. So I am not liable to pay GST on that transaction. Now the question is, sir, whether there is any transaction which will not be covered in 7.1b without consideration transaction. There is one important point, consideration is important. So if I am importing something without consideration, then it will not be covered in 7.1b. Whether it is for business, for not business, if it is without consideration, then it will not be covered in 7.1b. Okay? Okay, so that is regarding 7.1b. Now 7.1a talks about the supply with consideration. 7.1b talks about the import of the services. Now we can talk about schedule 1. Can you write down your query because I am not able to hear you properly? Please write down your query. Okay. Whether it is written that services other than online services will be exempt or not. Uh, it is it is actually in schedule 1 import of okay, okay, just a second. Samarjit, please mute yourself. Okay. So, Karthik, your question is whether it is written that services other than online services will be exempt. Actually, in exemption, it is written that if you are importing other than online services, you are importing for non-business use, then it is exempt. So, importation of service for non-business use other than online services is exempt. Okay. Crypto, I am not going to talk anything about crypto. You know why? Because even government is not talking anything about crypto. So I am not going to talk anything about crypto because it is in the ambiguity. It is there are a lot of confusion. I don't want to confuse you right now. So even government is not giving any explanation about crypto right now. So don't ask me to tell to explain me the GST effect of crypto. No, I am not going to explain that. Okay. Now the point is, now we have section 7, 7.1a, 7.1b. Now there is schedule 1. Schedule 1 talks about supply without consideration. Means even if I am supplying something and I am not charging any amount, I will be liable for paying GST. And there are 4 transactions covered here. First one is supply of goods on which ITC has been claimed. So if I have claimed ITC on anything, and if I am supplying that goods, I have to pay GST whether I am charging sufficient consideration or not. You know why? Because when I have bought something, I have claimed ITC on that. So if I am selling something, I have to pay GST because I am not using it for the business. I purchased a machinery, I claim the credit, and now I am selling it or I am disposing it for free. The government will charge me GST. You know why? Because I have claimed the credit on that. So if something will come, ITC will come. If something will go, the government will charge tax on that. So yeah, reversal amount of ITC. The tax amount that I have to pay will be the reversal amount of ITC, and that will depend on the usage, that after how many time I am disposing it. So there will be like a proportionate reversal depending on the usage of that asset. So in GST we are generally assuming the life of asset as 5 years. So if I am disposing the assets within 2 years, then proportionately remaining 60% credit, that is for remaining 3 years, I have to pay as a tax. So if I am buying something, minimum I have to use it for 5 years. And if I am not using it for 5 years, I am using it for only 2 years, then I can claim only 40% credit. Remaining 60% credit, I have to pay in the form of tax, even if it is without consideration. If I am selling that capital assets without any consideration like disposing it off for free, I have to pay GST because of reversal of ITC. Now another question is whether it is business asset or capital goods. Actually, I am talking about the business assets which are capitalized in my books of accounts. So that is called capital goods. Any business asset which is capitalized in my books of account is called capital goods. So if I am disposing of my capital goods, of course I have to reverse the ITC even if it is without consideration. That is the first transaction. So if I have disposed of any capital assets on which I have claimed ITC, at the time of disposal I have to pay the tax, proportionate tax according to the life. You know why? Because government is giving you credit for using it for 5 years and I am disposing it earlier. So of course I have to pay some amount of tax even if it is without consideration. That is the first point in schedule 1. Second point is supply to branches and relatives. I have already told you right now that I am transferring my goods from one branch to another branch. Even if it is without consideration, I have to generate an invoice. So if I am transferring the goods from one state to another state, I am having 2 different branches in 2 states. I am transferring the goods to the second branch, then I have to generate a bill even if I am not charging any consideration for that. Even if I am supplying the goods to relatives, very good example is I withdraw a business asset from my business and gift it to my relatives, my wife, my spouse, my employees. So a business asset is gifted to my relative, I have to pay GST on that, and the reason is again same, because I have claimed ITC on that. So if I have claimed ITC on that, then even gifting to the relatives, I have to pay the GST because I have already paid, I have already claimed the ITC. So I have to pay that ITC amount again. I am not using it. I have gifted that to the relatives. I have to pay that amount. So if I am supplying to any other state branch having the different GST, in that case I have to prepare an invoice. If I am gifting something to my relatives, I have to prepare an invoice and I have to reverse that credit. So I have to pay the tax on that transaction as well. So distinct branch, if I am having 2 different branches for the same PAN number in the different state, then that will be the distinct person. Interstate branch, I have to pay the GST if I am transferring goods from one branch to another branch. Okay. So it is a transfer, and it is a transfer which is covered in schedule 1. I have to pay GST on that transaction. Even this is very interesting. If a employer is gifting to its employee, employer and employee are relatives. So if employer is gifting to its employees, then also it is a supply. It is also covered under schedule 1. If I am gifting to my spouse, it is covered in schedule 1. I have to pay GST if I am gifting supply goods from my business to my employee or to my spouse, to my subsidiary company, to my relatives, I have to pay GST. The purpose is very simple. Government is not going to give you credit for gifts. If you are buying something, you are claiming credit, and now you are gifting that business asset to your relatives, you will have to pay the tax. You cannot enjoy the credit and gift it to your relatives. But yeah, there is one exception. If I am gifting my employee any kind of business asset, any kind of stock, any business transaction, then it is exempt if the gift in a financial year for an employee is not more than 50,000. This is interesting. There is one exemption for this relative transaction. If I am gifting something to my employee, then gift to employees is allowed per employee per financial year up to rupees 50,000. So if I am gifting for rupees 40,000, it will not be supply, not taxable. If I am gifting for rupees 60,000, then it will be completely taxable. Means 50,000 is not the basic exemption limit. So if the gift is less than 50,000, it is not a supply, it is not taxable. If the gift is more than 50,000, it is supply, it is taxable. Only employer is giving gift to employee. Yes, only employer is gifting to employee, then up to 50,000 per year per employee. Not for other relatives, only employees. Not for other relatives. Sir, if it is more than 50,000, then complete amount is taxable, complete. It is not a basic exemption limit. So more than 50,000, complete amount is taxable. Less than 50,000, complete amount is not a supply. Whole amount. Total amount of gift, multiple gift per employee in a financial year. So total amount, value of the gifts per employee in a financial year should not exceed 50,000. Total gifts. Okay. Is it clear to everyone? Nice. Next point. What is the third transaction which will be supply without consideration? Transaction between principal and agent. So I am sending goods to the agent. I have to prepare the invoice whether the agent will be paying the consideration right now or later. Like in case of consignment, I am sending the goods to the agent on consignment basis. I am not getting any consideration right now, but I have to prepare the invoice in the name of the agent. Yeah, this is again interesting because in 7.1a we have discussed transfer. So I am transferring my goods to the agent. Whether it is without consideration, I have to pay GST right now. Whether I will be charging the consideration later, it does not matter. I am sending the goods on consignment basis to the agent. I will prepare the invoice right now without consideration. Jatin is asking, gift to customer less than 50,000 is allowed. Actually, I am talking about only gift to employees. Gift to customer is not a supply. You know why? Because it is not covered in Schedule 1. Gift to employees is covered in Schedule 1. Gift to relatives is covered in Schedule 1. Gift to customer is not covered in 7.1a. Gift to customer is not covered in Schedule 1. So if I am giving the goods for samples, I don't have to pay any GST. I don't have to pay any GST on samples because they are not my relatives. They are not covered in 7.1a. They are not covered in 7.1b. They are even not covered in Schedule 1. So in Schedule 1, what is the third transaction? Principal and agent. So if I am supplying, a principal is supplying the goods to the agent, it will be covered, it will not be covered, it will be covered under GST even if it is without consideration. Nice. Next and the fourth transaction. This is again very important. It is about import of service. But listen, import of service from relative without consideration in furtherance of business in India. This is completely different from 7.1b. What 7.1b says, import of service for consideration with or without furtherance of business. Now here what is exactly written? Import of service from relatives even without consideration, but for business purpose in India is covered in Schedule 1. Sir, there is a lot of confusion because 71B says something, Schedule 1 says something, so I have prepared a chart for that. Look at this chart. Import of service with consideration covered in 71B. Now it is from relative, it is from non-relative, it is for business, it for not business, doesn't matter. Import of service with consideration covered in 71B. Now, if import of service is without consideration, then if it is from relative for business in India, then covered in Schedule 1. If import of service without consideration is not from relative, not for business in India, then it is not a supply. So important is what is excluded from the definition of supply, what is not a supply. Import of service without consideration from non-relative and for non-business in India. What is included in Schedule 1? Import of service without consideration from relative for business purpose in India. So basically there are 2 points. Whether the import of service is with consideration, yeah, it is a supply. Import of service without consideration, then it will be supply only if it is from the relatives for the purpose of business in India. Otherwise, it will not be a supply. Getting my point? Yes, I have an example to explain this. Listen this example. Tesla Incorporation. Tesla Incorporation is in US. They are the holding company of Tesla India. Tesla India is a subsidiary company of Tesla US, which is in abroad, and Tesla India is in India. Now they are relative because it's a holding subsidiary transaction, so of course they are relative. Now the point is, if Tesla India is sending any services to Tesla Incorporation is sending any services to Tesla India. Now even if it is without consideration, like holding company is not charging anything from the subsidiary company, it will be taxable in the hands of Tesla India Limited. It will be supply because first of all import of service without consideration from relative for business in India. So if Tesla holding is sending any technical services or any kind of services to Tesla India, to its subsidiary in India, it will be covered in Schedule 1 and it will be taxes supply without consideration. That is regarding Schedule 1. Now tell me, with this example, are you able to understand what is covered in Schedule 1 and what is covered in 7.1b? Clear thoughts? If it is with consideration, covered in 7.1b. If it is without consideration, two conditions is required to be followed: relative and business. Relatives and business. Okay, again I am sharing the chart. This is the chart. Listen, this is the chart. Import of service with consideration, 7.1b always covered, whether from relative, non-relative, business, non-business, doesn't matter. If it is for consideration, always covered in 7.1b. If it is import of service without consideration, of course then it is not covered in 7.1b. Now the question arises whether it is from relative and business. Yes, it should be from relative and should be for business in India. If both the conditions are applied, covered in Schedule 1. If any one condition is not fulfilled, it is not a supply, not in 7.1b, not in Schedule 1. Clear? Definition of relative, you have to refer notes or something like that, because I cannot give that much time just to explain the definition of relative. Generally, relative means family relations. Partners, director and the company, employer, employee, holding subsidiary, or common subsidiary, common holding, these all are the relatives. So the basic definition will be applicable. There is a specific definition in GST, but that talks about the same thing. Now moving towards the next important point. I've already told, yeah, this is interesting. Look at the news. I have a news for all of you guys. I just want everyone to read this news carefully. What it says: recently, the case of murder investigation against a minister took a turn around when the same minister employees testify against his employer, stating that I saw this minister bring in a dead body in a car of a different state and bury it in the warehouse situated on the land behind the government building. I also request the judge to take action against the same. I just want everyone to read this news carefully. I will once repeat this news in Hindi. So if you are comfortable with Hindi, you will get it more more clearly. In Hindi, I can recite it once. एक मिनिस्टर के एम्प्लॉय ने मिनिस्टर के खिलाफ गवाही दी, टेस्टिफाई किया कोर्ट में कि उसने मिनिस्टर को एक लाश, एक डेड बॉडी को दूसरे स्टेट की गाड़ी में लाते हुए देखा है और उसे देखा है सरकारी बिल्डिंग, गवर्नमेंट बिल्डिंग के पीछे वाली जमीन में दफनाते हुए, बरी करते हुए, और इस मिनिस्टर को खिलाफ एक्शन लिया जाए क्योंकि इसने उस लाश को दफनाया है, ये गुनहगार है, इसने एक लाश को सरकारी बिल्डिंग के पीछे वाली जमीन में दूसरे स्टेट की गाड़ी में लाया और दफनाया, ऐसा मिनिस्टर के एम्प्लॉय ने मिनिस्टर के खिलाफ टेस्टिफाई किया है कोर्ट के अंदर. दिस इज द स्टोरी in Hindi as well as it is written in English. Sir, why you are wasting our time? Why? Actually, this story will clear everything about Schedule 3. Yes, everything about Schedule 3. In this story, actually in this story, there is an hidden clues that will make us remember the whole Schedule 3. You know what is Schedule 3? Schedule 3 talks about the transaction which are neither supply of goods nor supply of services. So as per this news, all the transactions are covered in this news. Surprised? Yeah, now we can see that. What is the first transaction which is covered in Schedule 3? Employee giving services to employer. So this is the first Schedule 3 transaction. Means employer is giving services to employer. Employee is providing services to employer. In exchange of which he is getting salary. Whether that transaction is a supply, no. Means if an employee is getting salary, there is no GST on salary. Employee providing services to employer under the course of employment, it is a Schedule 3 transaction. There will be no GST. So in that story, we have one word, employee. If you remember that word from the story, employee. So employee is providing services to employer. It is not covered under the ambit of GST. It is covered under Schedule 3. It means if an employee is getting salary for services, there will be no GST on that salary. But again, it is important. This is very important for the purpose of MCQ as well. So I will request everyone to listen this very carefully. I am asking a question from all of you guys. I have a tie-up with ICMAI Institute to teach you something, to have all these sessions. I will be getting some money out of that. Of course, I will be getting some money out of that. Whether it is an employer-employee transaction? No. Why not? Why not? Actually, I am in a contractual relationship. Yeah, I am not an employee of ICMAI. I am not getting salary. I am not getting any salary. I am not committed to give 8 hours to ICMAI. I will be hired on the basis of contract. So of course, it's a contractual relationship, and when there is a contractual relationship, then GST will be applicable. So whatever money I am receiving from ICMAI, it will be chargeable under GST. But if an employee is getting salary for employment, then it is not covered under the ambit of GST, and there will be no GST on that transaction. So we have to be very sure whether it's a employer-employee transaction or whether it's a contractual transaction. If it's a contractual transaction, then it is not covered under the ambit of GST. If it's a, it is covered under the ambit of GST. If it's a employer-employee transaction, then it is not covered under the ambit of GST. First transaction under Schedule 3. Next transaction, services and the fees charged by court and the tribunal. So court charges a court fee for filing any case. If I am filing the case in a tribunal, then they charge a court fee or tribunal fee for that. That is not covered under the ambit of GST. But there is a word written as fees, services provided by the court or tribunal framed under the act. Framed under the act. So yeah, IT80, NCL80, NCLT, or I can say GST80, all these are tribunals framed under Act. So if the tribunal is charging any fees, there will be no GST on that. But fee charged by arbitral tribunal is covered under GST. Arbitral tribunal is basically arbitrator, and arbitrators are not governed by any act. So arbitral tribunal is an independent body which is not a judiciary. They are not framed under any act. So arbitral tribunal, if they are charging fees for any arbitration, that will be covered in the GST. The word written is tribunal framed under the act. So if there is any arbitral tribunal, it will not covered under the ambit of GST. Sorry, it will be covered under the ambit of GST, but the courts and the tribunal which are framed under the act is not covered under the ambit of GST. Is it clear to everyone? Yes. Moving to the next point. Parliamentary post. Ministers, MLAs, Panchayat chairman, Pradhan, Sarpanch, local authority, Mahapaur, Nagar Nigam or municipality head, chairman, all these are constitutional posts. So they are giving the services for public. So the ministers, all the MLAs, member of local authority, they are not covered under the ambit of GST. So whatever money they are getting for their services, that is also covered in Schedule 3. That is also not covered in the GST. Fourth point. Services provided by government as a public authority like municipality in panchayat function. Somebody asked me whether supply of water by the government is covered under GST or not. No. You know why? Because it is not a supply as per Schedule 3. So the government is providing us municipality services, panchayat services. That is also excluded. That is not under the ambit of supply. Schedule 3, it is covered. Fourth point. This is very interesting. Sale of land and building. This is very interesting, so listen very carefully. Sale of land and building is not covered under GST. Yeah. Sir, you are confusing us because earlier you said that real estate transaction is covered under GST and now you are saying is land and building is not covered under GST. Actually, constructed properties are not under GST. So if I am selling a constructed ready-made house, I will be paying stamp duty for transfer of my name, but I will not be paying any GST. Then sir, when GST will be leviable? GST will be leviable when a builder is selling under constructed property. Like generally it happened, like if I am launching a township, what I will do is I will prepare a 3D model, I will prepare a planning and I will start booking the flats. I start booking the houses. I will take the advances, I will take the installments and then I will start construction. So in that case, GST will be leviable because that will be treated as construction services. But if I am selling a ready-made house, if I am selling a ready-made plot, then that is a real estate transaction and that will not be covered under GST. Then what will be covered under GST? Under constructed property. So what is covered in GST? Construction of building, civil structure, where advance consideration is received before completion of the project. So if I am receiving any advance consideration, then it will be under the ambit of GST. What will not be under the ambit of GST? Ready-made properties. Sir, what is the ready-made property bought from the builder with completion certificate? Yes. So if I am selling the property after getting the completion certificate, I didn't booked anything. I didn't get any advance out of it. I am booking the property. I am selling the property only after completion certificate. Then it will be sale of land and building. It will be in Schedule 3. Sir, when the GST will be leviable? When a builder is booking in advance. He doesn't have a completion certificate. The building is under construction. They started booking and they are getting the amount in installments. Then that will be a construction activity and they will charge GST on that sale of property. So under constructed flats, under constructed property is covered under ambit of GST. Ready-made property after completion certificate sale of property is a sale of land and building and that will be covered in Schedule 3. I know you have a lot of questions in this. You may ask any question about this transaction. Tell me if you have any doubts regarding this transaction. Tell me. Ask me anything about this. If you have any doubts. Otherwise, we can move further to the next slide. Is it clear to everyone? Okay, nice. Moving towards the next point. So builder building, he's uh, selling the building and it is not under constructed, then of course it is covered in schedule 3. It's not a supply because it is an under constructed property, so it is not an under constructed property, to say it's not a supply. He's selling the land, of course. Selling of the land is not a supply because of course it's not constructed at all. Third is, it is under constructed property, then of course it is a supply. So if he is selling any under constructed property, then it is also a supply. It is for residential building as well as for commercial building. So if I am selling any commercial office, it's a ready-made office, I will not be paying any GST on sale of office as well. No. Sir, if under construction property booking cancelled, whether GST will be refundable? Yeah, of course, it will be refundable. In case of advance, only advance is chargeable or whole consideration? Whole consideration. If you took an advance now, it will be a supply. So I will be paying GST on the whole consideration. Whole consideration, the complete sale value of the plot of the flat, I have to pay the GST on complete sale value of the plot, not only on the advance amount. So I received 50% advance, 50% after constructed, I will be paying GST on the whole amount. Whole amount. Okay, very nice. Moving towards the next slide. Yeah. Together. Together, na? Together. Okay. So they will be charging the amount only on building or only or also on the value of land, na? That is your question, na? Okay, actually, government introduced, right now the government introduced a flat system. Flat means you will pay 5% GST on the total value, including land. So the rate of GST is reduced to 5%, but including the value of land. So if buying a flat, that flat includes the value of land as well, I will be paying 5% GST on the total value. Other option is you can pay GST at the rate 18% and reduce the, at the rate 12% and reduce the land value 1/3 of the total value. They have assumed 1/3 value as value of land and 2/3 as the value of flat. So you have to opt for two different options, whether to go for complete value, then you can pay rate only 5%, and if you want to segregate the value of land, then they will only allow the reduction of 1/3 value of the land. So on 2/3 you have to pay the 12%. So it depends on the option you want to opt. So the government gives you two options. Okay? For any kind of project, whether it is single project, duplex project, flats, township, for everything they are assuming a presumptive rate of 1/3 on the land. That is very low. I know that is the question from the industry, that a lawmaker gives a very, very low rate for reduction in the value of land. Practically what happened is the value of land is much, much higher than the construction. But this is what is written in the law. Okay? Nice. Moving towards the next point. Yeah, 5% is without credit. Yeah, 5% is without credit. Next transaction is again interesting. If I am transferring any title of the goods during importation, like I have imported something, but my importation is not complete. I have not cleared the goods for consumption. My goods are in the custody of custom department. That time I am transferring the title. Means the title was transferred when the goods was in the custody of custom department. Then that transfer is not a supply, because even the import is not yet completed. Import is pending, and if I transfer my title, then of course how can it be a supply in India even when the import is not yet completed? So when the goods are imported, and during that course of importation, if I transferred my title, like I put my goods in the warehouse, it was in my custom warehouse, or it was in the high sea area, and I want to transfer the title, I can transfer the title. I will not charge any GST because the goods are not yet cleared for home consumption. The import doesn't completed. So if the import doesn't completed, there will be no GST on such supply. Clear to everyone? Moving towards the next transaction. This is the after death services. you can write down the query. You can write down the query. I will answer after 1:30 because 1:30 is the deadline for the end of this session. So I want to complete this 2-3 transaction remaining. I will take the doubts. You just write down the doubts in the chat box. Okay, what is the 7th point? 7th point is after death services, funeral, burial, mortuary, cremation. So the government is looting everyone in the name of taxes for the whole life. But the government knows that if I am charging tax after that services, then that Pret Atma will hurt me. That Pret Atma will come and come in the dreams of the government, and they will not. Uh, and that's why they don't charge any GST after that services. Funeral, burial, mortuary, and these services are not supplied. That will not be covered in the ambit of GST. Next one is actionable claims, but interesting. Other than betting, gambling, and lottery. So government, the purpose of including actionable claim was to introduce tax on betting, gambling, and lottery. So other than betting, gambling, and lottery, if I am transferring any other actionable claim, like bill of exchange, discounting of bill of exchange, that is not a supply under Schedule 3 because actionable claims is covered in Schedule 3. Only betting, gambling, and lottery is a supply. So other than betting, gambling, and lottery, there is any other transaction of actionable claim, it will be not be supply, it will not be covered under Schedule 3. And grant of liquor licenses. This is new. State government grant the liquor licenses, so that is also not covered in Schedule 3 because state government earns a ton lot of money for granting the liquor licenses. So liquor is not under the ambit of GST. Whether liquor license is under the ambit of GST? No. So if the state government is charging money for grant of liquor licenses, that is also covered in Schedule 3. And the last point of Schedule 3 is movement of conveyances. Like I am a bus operator. I am a bus operator and I am sending my bus from Madhya Pradesh to Gujarat for carrying the passenger. So whether sending the conveyance is a supply? No. I have two branches. One branch is Madhya Pradesh, one branch is in Gujarat. I am sending a vehicle from Madhya Pradesh to Gujarat for some transportation of goods, transportation of passenger, for repairing. So whether sending the vehicle from one state to another state is a supply? Of course not. The goods which are going in that conveyance is a supply. But vehicle, transfer of vehicle from one branch to another branch is not a supply. How can it is possible that I am sending my vehicle for transportation of goods from one branch to another branch? Whether it should be supply? Of course not. So movement of conveyance from one branch to another branch is also not a supply. But yeah, the goods which are going in that conveyance, that will be a supply. That conveyance is not a supply. So now, how many transactions we have covered in Schedule 3? Overall 10. And the interesting thing is, all that transaction was covered in that news. What? Minister. Minister. You remember minister? What was the, there is a clue, minister. Minister means which supply in Schedule 3? Member of Parliament, MLA, parliamentary post. Then, employee. Second thing is employee. Employee-employer relationship. Second clue. Third one is testifying. Where a person testified. Where he testified? In courts. So fee charged by the courts. Third one. Fourth one is dead body. Dead body means we are talking about the after death services. Burial, funeral, mortuary. Then warehouse. Warehouse means we are talking about the custom warehouses where the goods are stored before clearance. Next one is land, sale of land. Government services. Building, sale of building. Action means we are talking about the actionable claims. And car of the different state means I am talking about the conveyance of the different state. I just didn't add the one thing, that is grant of liquor license. I can add that also. I can add in the story that the minister was drunk. So from that we also get one more clue, that granting of liquor licenses. So overall there are how many supply in Schedule 3? How many supply for Schedule 3? 10. Saurabh Kumar, you will get all these notes from this link. Just download these notes from this Google Drive link. Okay, you don't have to screenshot every slide. Nice. So this is about schedule 3. And interesting thing is, this is mostly about uh, schedule 3. Okay. So now there is one more thing, but I think that is not that much important. It is about the schedule 2 that talks about the list of goods and services. What should be goods, what should be services. That is not that relevant because it clearly says that what should be treated as supply of goods and what should be treated as supply of services. That is not that very important. So that they will not ask any MCQ, and just read it once, that permanent transfer is a supply of goods, hire purchase is goods, right to use is a renting is a service, renting of movable property is a service, restaurant is a service, job work is a service, construction is a service, works contract is a service, IT software development is a service, personal use of business asset is a service, transfer of intangible property is a service. So this is basically the list of goods and services. So mostly our section 7 is completed. We are left with only section 8 in the supply that we will be covering in our next part from 2:30. So we are having another session from 2:30 to 4:30 where we will be covering section 8, that is composite mix supply. We will be covering section 9 and 10, that is about the charging section. Then we will be covering TOS, POS and WOS in the next session. So we are meeting again from 2:30 to 4:30. So have a break for 1 hour. If you have time, just revise what we have discussed from supply, from the basics, from the introduction. Just revise that, and from 2:30 we will be meeting and we will be discussing later all the topics. I hope you are enjoying the session. I hope you are enjoying. Yes, thank you. So having a lunch break for 1 hour, and then we will be meeting by 2:30. Thank you so much. Enjoy. Good day. Bye bye. Thank you. You have query, you can ask me now. You can ask me the queries. Yeah. Can you, I can't hear you. Can you type your doubt? Please, can you type your doubt, please? Just ask me in the chat box. Schedule 3 is about negative list. Yeah, Schedule 3 is about negative list. That talks that if you are covered in Schedule 3, it means your supply is not a supply, your transaction is not a supply. There will be no GST on your transaction if you are covered in Schedule 3. Whether sale of flat is taxable, again, whether the money received before completion of the flat or after completion of the flat. If the flat is already completed and then you are selling, it is not supply, it will be covered in Schedule 3. Service, of course, service. I have already covered that. Anything other than uh, it is a transaction of immovable property. So, of course, it will be covered in the definition of services, not in the definition of goods. Uh, Next is kindly make refund and classification as priority. Classification I will be cover. Refund we will discuss, but classification I will cover. Okay. Classification they can ask some question, but major topic they will ask question is place of supply, time of supply, value of supply. They can, or ITC. These are the main topics they can ask MCQs from that. There is no GST of selling in constructed flat. Yeah, there is no GST on constructed flats. Of course, there is no GST. Thank you. We will be meeting by 2:30. Sharp 2:30. Thank you.